Hello, can you hear me? I can hear you. I heard you at first, but now it says muted for you.
Hello, Christine, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you,
I can't hear you.
but you can't hear me. Oh no. Let's see.
Now.
I can hear you. I'm not sure. Let's. Technical difficulties, of course. You're unmuted, but you kind of sound muted. Well, hopefully at some point that will kick in.
I want to go out and come back in.
Okay. Hopefully.
Send you an email, by the way, if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Okay. Hopefully everyone can hear me as well. Greetings. This is Christine Van Pelt on Gibson County, Indiana. And I want to welcome Indiana and Kentucky to the call for today. This is Monday, October the 23rd, 2023. We are in session. I need to update that as well so we can, as we're working to support each other in state coordinator aspects, to include Kentucky in that being in session. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll take a moment to honor our Creator. All right, get the screen share back up. Okay. We'll proceed with the Bivens decision. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at today's meeting or call that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present? Is there any response to the Bivens decision for the first time? And you can put your comment in the chat if you're on Zoom or if you're on the call with us on YouTube. Also, put in the YouTube chat that what county you live on, whether it's on an Indiana county or a Kentucky county. Make sure you put which state and at least your first name so we can all say hi to you. And I should be able to see, hopefully I should be able to start seeing in a moment. So as you're coming into the call, go ahead and put your name and what county and the state that you're on, whether it's Indiana or Kentucky. Okay, again, so is there any response to the Bivens decision for the first time? Again, you can post that in the chat as well. Hearing none, seeing none, is there any response to the Bivens decision for the second time? Hearing and seeing none, is there any response to the Bivens decision for the third and final time? Hearing and seeing none. Furthermore, anyone who is here under false pretenses, anyone who is working for any foreign government, including the territorial United States or municipal United States, anyone is being paid or coerced to be here, must fully disclose their presence and purpose now. Leave the call. Remember, you're a public employee, and it's our duty to remind you. All right. So, are you able to hear me now, Joe? Oh, there's a chat. Hold on.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, yes, great. Okay. All right. Okay. So, I'm going to do a quick run through of most of these slides of just getting a walkthrough so you have a reminder that we'll be including them with presentations moving forward, and always update as we know more from there. But here's a brief overview of this evening's agenda for the evening. So far I'm not seeing anyone in the chat commenting yet, so we'll go ahead and keep going. I thought I saw it pulls that up funny for me, so or is that old? Okay, I'm not sure yet on that. Okay. All right, so I'm not seeing anybody yet in the chat putting up any counties, but Gibson County here for Indiana is present, and I know we have Kentuckians. Which county for you, Joe? Is Spencer?
Yes, Spencer.
Spencer? All right. We're going to put you in. Okay, and might as well put, well, I'm here. We know I'm here. All right, so far, I'm not seeing anybody in the chat on there. I don't know why that's lit up as a reminder, I guess. Okay, so we'll go ahead and then for the main portion of this evening's call, we're going to be, as far as what I'll be presenting, is a snippet from the October 15th All-State Coordinator Training Call, where our Chief Continental Marshal Paul was on the call and provided some valuable information. The gist, the majority of that call was based on jurisdiction and standing up and being recognized. All right, so we want to make sure that we get, I'm only going to do parts of it, but I did I did clip out the entire segment of it, so you can have all the information that was great information as well. But I'm not playing all of it because it's almost an hour, well, close to an hour, so we don't need that for this call. Okay, so we'll be able to see the information through there on that recording is the primary. I want to remind everyone there's no call for next week for October 30th because there's 5 Mondays in this month. So the Jural Assembly and Militia Assembly call will be adjourned till November 13th. So then the November 6th is General Assembly and Militia Assembly. All right, so I'm running through, we're going to do a run through of slides that'll be regular slides for us so that we can have that repetition as reminders to help bring our movement into change and positivity, and so we can make this happen. All right, I don't know why that's, oh, there it is. It looks funny. And then, of course, I think it's all being shown the whole screen. Okay. Now, this is what the coordinators go through. We listen to this and we stand with this each week with our coordinator training, is that we cannot fail. We're willing and able to do this work physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We have resolve and determination. We walk the talk and work every day to bring the du jour into reality. We have excellent tools to complete our work. We set realistic and achievable goals. We learn and research constantly. We have a timeline this year. It's always now. We track our progress. We measure our strengths and weaknesses. We continually improve and revise accordingly, and we conduct ourselves with peace and love. All right. Now, also bear in mind that many may think that while it may not seem like it's coming in peace and love, given that sometimes straight information has to come through and it's not always what you want to hear, doesn't mean that it's not still being brought forth in peace and love. All right, some reminders of what the classic signs of infiltrators. I want to make this a little bit bigger. All right, so agent, provocateurs, and infiltrators. So here goes through: one employed to associate and suspected persons by pretending sympathy with their aims to incite them to some incriminating action. Infiltrator, as an informer or stool pigeon, here are synonyms. Also, a lurker. There are many that like to lurk. They like to hang around on calls and not say anything, and not really commit to anything either. So that was a great definition. All right, so, and this is in one of the articles that I list in all of the emails, but the classic signs of what infiltrators try to do. Attack the coordinators. It's always something about the coordinator, Anna, James, so any of the leaders. Attack the foundational elements, specifically the paperwork. They think they're different, so they want to do the paperwork differently in their situation. But that's why we have to have standards and principles so that we don't end up with what has happened, right? So you can go through the rest of those. It's also in an article that's been pointed out several times. All right, a reminder of what the mission statement is for the Indiana Assembly. Our Indiana Assembly is dedicated to the restoration of a complete and fully operational land and soil jurisdiction, state and county court system serving the people of Indiana, the preservation of the national trust, the enforcement of the public law, the upholding of the federal constitution owed to our state and people, the repopulation of our land and soil jurisdiction, the filling of our vacated public offices, and the reclamation of our material and intellectual public and private assets. To these ends, we, the living people of Indiana, have called the eligible Indiana nationals and citizen electors to assemble and to serve as jurors and officers, and we've established the process and procedure to qualify jurors and others competent to hold state citizenship and public office. We do this peacefully and without rancor in the exercise of our unincorporated powers and capacities. Now I gotta minimize this. Oh, this way. Value statements. We stand under the laws of nature, the laws of nature's God, the Ten Commandments, the Declaration of Independence. We accept the fiduciary responsibility of the Indiana Trust and operate under the prudent man standard, meaning we treat our state business as if it were our own business. We keep peace and uphold the public law. We report crime. We value each man and woman as a unique creation of our Creator, recognize them as a powerful co-creator. We willing choose to self-govern and strive to show up as our best self in each and every experience. I have to fix the typo. The nerd in me has to do that. Sorry about that. We do not and we will not condone or participate in any form of insurrection, rebellion, or creation of armed forces other than the lawful state assembly militias operated as they are supposed to be operated within each state and our land-based Continental Marshal Service, which is our jurisdictional interface with the U.S. Marshal Service. And we perform under the treaties and constitutional agreements already established and for supporting the restored American government, the reconstruction thereof, and will become responsible for the conduct of the restored Confederation and Federal Republic. All right, just a reminder of what our four functions are. The four pillars is the primary function here. We've got the General Assembly, International Assembly, Jural Assembly, and the Militia Assembly. We're building all 4 of these pillars. Here's a reminder of the Jural Assembly and some base committees that need to be started and some ideas about, or at least what the what some of the purposes are for those committees. Same for militia. As a reminder, all able-bodied members of the assembly between ages of 21 and 65, also not really worried about age, are expected to actively support their militia in one way or another, either as active militia or acting in support, supply, communications, and administrative positions. And here are starting point of committees for militia as well. All right, so assembly goals that we want to focus on, three key goals. We want to populate all the counties. Indiana has populated, there's at least papered up national on 31 of the 92 counties for Indiana. And out of the 120 counties for Kentucky, 35 are populated. All right. So that's the first goal. The second goal is establishing committees. So for this call, we need to establish committees that are relative to the Jural Assembly and the Militia Assembly. And these are at least key ones that we want to get working on at this point in time. Then the third goal is establish the State Militia Assembly, primarily getting the CERT program involved. If you just do it's FEMA.gov, I think is, I've got the page. Hold on, I gotta stop share. Come over here. Welcome on the call, I'm just now seeing. Here, I pulled it up here. Now let me screen share that. Alright, so it is FEMA.gov CERT. So if you can scroll down here to get more information about CERT, there's also the ability to be able to do independent study, so that if you didn't want to go through all the, informing them information about you, there eventually because like with Washington State, they have a member that is certified and has started supporting training the states. So once we're ready to start doing that, we can move into that as well. But you're also welcome to start looking this up, as well as I myself have gone through Indiana's CERT basic program, albeit it was well over a decade ago. But I have done the basic training of CERT with my husband. And so that's at least a starting point, that if we did want to do our own trainings, that I can at least be able to support in that manner. And all the materials are, most of the materials are, if they're not available for them to mail out and printed and mailed to you, or they have a PDF that you can be able to print as well and start getting some of this information. As well as emergencykits.com will help with putting together emergency kits, as well as for supporting the CERT program. This would be valuable to be able to start building a CERT kit for your counties as well. Okay, so that is that piece. Now let me go back over to this. Okay. All right, so then we go over here. All right, so what I've done is, you've seen where I've done the colored map to show, because I've already had this in play for Indiana. So the red counties are counties that are already populated, which are the green on the chart down here. So that way we can also see a grid of the counties. Those that are in this blue-gray have not even reached out. Those that are in yellow have at least emailed to say, hey, I'd like more information. And then, of course, the ones in green are at least have a papered up national on that county. And I've gone in for Kentucky as well. So it's one thing to see it just knowing what counties, but then it's also to see it on a map, because obviously our first goal is populating all the counties. Okay. All right, now I'm going to jump to these other ones. It's just going to be a quick walkthrough so that we can be able to go to the recordings. I wanted to give you a quick map of the postal areas. We are Postal Area 4, so as you can start getting familiar with that. Of course, here is our social media information, the shop for Indiana State Nationals, and scheduling information with me. Here, if you have any Army crimes to report, here's the link. Naval, and here is more info for dealing with the military. And a reminder about the Clearfield Doctrine that's from Anna. Here are main links for us for the assembly. There's the participation member agreement, contact info for your contact info to give to the assembly that you're willing to for sharing for communications. The assembly men and women points of order, militia standards and principles. And you've seen the standard operating procedures template link. What I have added here is committees, the way we work, as well as recommended committee structures, so you can get more in depth at looking at the different committees. That there's some base info in place for, and then of course a template of how to start at least building for the different cores for an overview of the different committees. Okay, so then of course here are our main. Here it is, the warning signs you have district infiltrators is the article from earlier above that lists the classic signs. Law of peace. Here is the law of peace. You'll learn more about that in the recording that we're playing this evening. So I wanted to go ahead and give you that link so that you can be able to read that yourself. Here are, Terry has shared reminders of articles to help with getting the Jural Assembly set up, so you can go through that, giving you more knowledge on that. Reminder of, we talked about last week on the, for the talesman information. Here is about dealing with their licenses and things like that. Reminder of staying in your lane. You're going to learn a lot about that. It's called jurisdiction, right? As well. We all have jurisdiction. It's staying in your own lane. What jurisdiction are you in at the time? And of course, here's the chart for 5 citizens. Here's the chart for the government structure. Here's how the flow should go. And then here is our ending. So we'll go ahead and before we get started in the video, is there any comments, questions before we get into that?
Just a comment, Christine, that's really great layout. I mean, anybody who is even remotely interested in assisting with state coordination, these slides are impeccable and should give anybody a healthy step forward pursuing that role. A great job.
Thank you very much. I want to welcome Anita on Meade County, Kentucky is on YouTube. Welcome.
All right, Anita.
Can I chime in, please? This is Justin of Lincoln.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say also, as an outstanding presentation, I like the fact that you give the information before you give the slide. I mean, Joe and I have been discussing hammering in on the coordinator position of Kentucky, trying to get somebody to kind of step up. Not as huh? Was it cutting out?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not as a leverage type thing, but kind of an encouragement type standpoint.
Right.
We'll be there to help, but this is perfect example of how to sit in the coordinator seat. So, again, bravo.
Well, it's also helpful that because you all are here, it's helping me to step it up as well. So, thank you for committing to supporting this for all of us as well. Justin, what county are you on?
Lincoln County, Kentucky.
Lincoln, okay.
Yep. I just want to say welcome to Anita too. Thanks for she's a loyal Kentuckian. She's always there, and she was at our first face-to-face meeting too. I think she traveled quite a way. So welcome, Anita. Thanks for making the time.
Welcome. All right. Anything else before we get into that? Get into the video? We good? Okay. All right. Let me stop this to come to the video. Okay. So, I've got the whole video up, but there's 2 segments, so I gotta remember where the cutoff times are. That's why I've got it in the spreadsheet, or in our agenda as well. So we've got into the up to 14, and then 29, 54, 33. I apologize. Get this timing. It gets a little, the windows get crazy when you have the too many video tabs at the same time too. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we've got the first 14 minutes in this one. And this one, this piece of the segment is where, again, this is the October 15th All-State Coordinator Training Call that Chief Continental Marshal Paul came to the call and gave us some information about jurisdiction and answered some questions for the coordinator. So this is key information about what is jurisdictional cross and how can that easily occur. So there is examples throughout the video, but we're only going to go into this first segment. But you can go, the link is in the agenda so that you'll be able to see the whole video when you're ready. Okay. Here we go. Let me get the mic over here.
Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Pappas. I'm the Chief Continental Marshal. And we're coming here to talk about jurisdiction and what the Continental Marshal's jurisdiction is. And there's been discussions about it lately, and I don't want anybody to think that is a powerful position for any of us. Jurisdiction and enforcing our jurisdictions, if you hear me enforcing certain jurisdictions, it's in the international, and we'll discuss what those are, and you guys can ask questions, but I'll try to get you straight. Anybody that's enforcing jurisdiction is doing it to protect you. And jurisdiction is a line, and each one of the peacekeeping elements sticks within their line, and that's all the checks and balances. So just know that when we're that's why we're here. And then because all 50 state coordinators meet in the same spot, that is international. It's where you guys can influence and do different stuff between states, where each independent sovereign state are the ones with the power. And that's what we do. We do international as far as between the 50 states, and then we do international as far as other countries. Once the marshals are up and running, so we have everything running, government and all that in place. the marshals would have already cleaned up stuff coming that sea jurisdiction, contract law stuff, people on our land, and crimes against humanity, and all different other things that the marshals deal with. But once all that's handled, the marshals would basically be looking out their state lines. So we have a state chief once they're in place, and we're looking for a lot of these positions. But once we have a state chief, they only have the geographical boundary of that state as a continental marshal. And they watch. They go to your assembly. They watch what's going on. They make sure that one state isn't interfering with the other state, and vice versa. The marshal at arms also deals with that jurisdiction. They have their line. So marshal at arms protects the assembly itself, all the state citizens, where they meet, a bunch of stuff with militia. I don't know the whole marshal at arms job, but I know the jurisdiction. And if I can explain it the best way, each county has a sheriff, or will have a sheriff as they get stood up. That sheriff, he's the highest law of the land on his county. If I'm standing next to him, work for the Federation, the whole deal, and something goes wrong, I'm the one that gets put in handcuffs, not a sheriff. So that sheriff has his jurisdiction of his county that he protects. And inside that county, there's another fenced-in area called the assembly. And the sheriff's not bothering that. The marshal at arms is the peacekeeper in there. And not even, the marshal at arms isn't even part of the peacekeeping task force, okay? So the marshal at arms would basically take off their badge and gun and all that once they leave the assembly. Now, I'm sure at some point there would be Secret Service and all that different stuff that deals with the assembly citizens that are working there, okay? And the marshal at arms would be in charge of all of that because he provides the security. But if that marshal at arms were to go out of his assembly fence and step onto the fence kind of between the states, if the marshal tried to step over that fence, that the marshals watch the outer perimeter of your state, okay? If the marshal at arms were to go outside of that state, then that's a jurisdictional issue because of their only jurisdiction is within the assembly for protection there. A sheriff, his boots can only go to the edge of his county. And then if he has a relationship with another sheriff, he could call for help and all that. But if by some chance he doesn't have a relationship with that sheriff, then it would be the marshals to be called. And the marshal at arms would know what's going on. The marshal at arms is friends with the sheriff. The marshal at arms is friends with the continental marshal. And the marshal at arms should also know which jurisdiction each issue was. If it was somebody stole my cow, and it wouldn't even be in the assembly, they would just call the sheriff. A lot of people call the continental marshals for stuff and we can't help, and we hate it. We wish we could, but the fact of the matter is continental marshals and sheriffs, they don't have any jurisdiction or marshal at arms until we're all up and standing anyway. But you're going to see everybody in their positions, hopefully, practicing their positions. So you'll see that with the continental marshals, you'll see it with PKTF and everybody else. We practice what position we will have. So jurisdiction comes into play. And Anna described it before as all of the states being one big quilt together. But each one of you independent sovereign states are the ones that create that beautiful piece of that quilt without influence from others. So when there's influence of others, that's a jurisdictional cross. No matter who it be, whether it's me, Terry, Anna, Harold, and anybody, it's a jurisdictional cross to influence another state. But if the other state wants that help, then there is no jurisdictional problems. The marshal doesn't worry about it. They were invited in. They were given the key to come in and help. And that's all up to the people who make all those decisions. So hopefully the Continental Marshals, all we'll be doing is protecting you on the outside while you have a sheriff and a militia on the inside doing everything. You won't call for the marshals. So hopefully that explains. If anybody has any questions about jurisdiction, which I'm sure you guys will, we can go through those answers, and hopefully that doesn't take up too much time, Terry.
Well, Paula, I know that people have questions about the rules and the jurisdiction, and so I think this is pretty critical for a lot of us. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah. So I'll point out what I see. Okay, my job is to watch. Okay, and I watch here too. Now earlier when Joe was talking, his voice was low. Dave is the one that commented to do that, but that is a marshal at arms, Dave. And I'm just wondering why a marshal at arms that's to be protective of their own assembly is on a 50-state coordinator call. And then I was concerned, with it being guests. Everybody shows as guests. Nobody knows who's here or not.
Yeah, we had talked about this as a possibility, but there were no decisions made, and so perhaps Michelle made an executive decision.
May I?
Yes.
Yes. So last week there was county people on the call, and so I felt that today's call would be important for all of our elected officials. So all of the elected officials on California were invited by me.
Okay. It's still a crossing of jurisdiction. Now in our assemblies we are allowed to see what's going on. Everything's transparent. That's not a problem. But to speak or comment or anything else like that crosses jurisdictional line. No matter what it is, even if they came as witnesses or whatever, they should be silenced when you invite them.
Okay, so for anyone, I don't know who from California is on this call because I can't see. Everybody says guest, so I have no idea who's on this call. But if anybody from California is on this call and you're not a state coordinator, you heard it from Marshal Paul yourself that you should not speak. And with that, I yield.
So any questions on jurisdiction anybody would like me to answer?
Oh, I have a big one.
Sure.
And that is, you and I spoke about this a little bit when we were doing our prep work for the meeting with you and Joe. But I think it's unclear for many coordinators. And some people say, oh, well, we need to report this to the marshals, and we need to get the marshals involved. And so there is a method of doing that, but you don't have land commissions yet. So your involvement is going to be limited. Could you clarify for us how that works?
Sure. So our involvement is limited as far as having a commission. But like I said, we all still practice our positions. So we will still investigate, and we will still enforce jurisdiction if there's a problem. Now, none of the Federation have authority, including me, have the authority to enforce. But we do, as being transparent, have a right to investigate and know that the Continental Marshals will protect and will act. So there are rules we follow, and we just make sure that those rules that apply to you and me, Terry, apply to everybody else. We're all people here. There is no authority. I tried to explain to you the other day somewhere, the real authority that anybody has right now is basically Anna. That's the authority. And you won't hear Anna telling you what to do with your independent sovereign state. She gives you all the work, how to set up the 4 pillars. So she's not going to interfere. If she did, that would be crossing jurisdictional lines. Same thing of Harold or Terry or me or anybody else. But Terry's different. Terry's in a realm where, because she did a good job with Washington, she now teaches all of you how to do it. But it's teaching. It's not telling you how to run your independent sovereign state. And if you choose not to run it with the information Terry gives for standing up the 4 pillars, then you'll see the authority. Anna will come in, Shannon will come in, and they will shut you down and restart the state. They've already done it. So as long as you're following the rules, nobody from other states or the Federation should be forcing you into doing anything on your state. And any help you choose to get from another state, you should be getting a vote of the people to make sure that that is what they like, and then they get invited in. It would be the same if I came to speak. You'd have to invite me.
Okay, Paul.
All right. Okay, so the next recording that I want, segment of this same recording that I want us to go over, and I put the timestamps on this slide. It's slide 15, so that you can go back to it in the big recording, the main recording for it. So it's about dual citizenship. So this is important, and it was brought up by California, so which would be, noticeable. So that was why it was relevant for them to bring this question up. Okay. Let me get to that in here. That timestamp is about here. Okay.
Hi. Could you clarify about dual citizenship? How does it work for each state if somebody is a citizen of a foreign country and they want to serve their area or their county as a coordinator?
Yeah, they cannot be a dual citizen in our American government. If they choose to denounce their citizenship with whatever country it was that they were born, adopt a state, put that on the public record, and then the renouncement letter is to be loaded up on their LRO account also, where it can be verified. And then they can serve. They're no longer a dual citizen. But if they hold 2 citizenships, they cannot be a dual citizen. They can only do their paperwork and be an American national.
I see. So if they failed vetting because they did not send a renouncement letter to their foreign country and then publish that on the LRO,
They don't actually have to send it to the foreign company or to the foreign country. All they have to do is renounce it and put it on the public record, which Anna and I figured it to be LRO. They or write that paper that they renounce citizenship of their country of birth, they're adopting such and such state, put that on the public record, which is LRO. Anybody can see it there. And then if they ever tried to defect and go back to that country, didn't want to be American anymore, found out they were heir to money in their country, and said, I'm out of here, and took off, then we have that letter to provide to their government that they are an American. They are no longer that citizenship invasion. It's on the public record, and then the Continental Marshals extradite them back for trial.
Excellent, thank you. And then what about if they decide to maintain a passport of their foreign country, even though they published a letter on the LRO? If we are aware of that information as a state assembly, and we know that their passport is still active and valid, even though they published a letter on the LRO, how are we to determine the extent of their loyalty to the state?
That would go on the state's vetting. The vetting would go through it, and whether they passed or not, that's not the law of the land. The vetting committee is not law of the land. They still, that committee still formed originally by the militia, the people. And it has to go back to the people to find out what that committee figured out. And if the people vote down what you said, then that person goes into office. But it's up to the people that are doing it. But you will see where the criminals are when they do that. If American state citizens on California are putting in people like that, they're putting in criminals. And that means the ones that are putting them in are criminals too.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate the clarification. I yield.
Other questions from coordinators?
All right, then for the last segment here, this is about, it's very clear that we need to stand up to be recognized, and Paul makes it very clear for us in this recording. Okay, and this, we'll get to this time stamp, 3412.
Terry,
Oh,
Terry, this is Kimberly.
Yeah.
Kimberly, I'm gonna pop in here with a question and a statement. Statement one for Joe. Texas does not have a website at the present because it was hijacked and commandeered last year, and we're working to rebuild it. So when we do, we will make contact with you. And then relative to the border, we're about to send a notice to the state of state officers about the border and what our expectations are. Our assembly has not formally erected our militia yet. We don't have really enough people to cover the land mass that we have. Any suggestions or comments relative to holding our employees accountable for protecting 1,300 miles of border from El Paso to Brownsville?
Well, your employees will not listen to what you have to say until you're recognized as a government. And if everybody put as much time and effort as to messaging the de facto into standing up the assemblies, we'd be off and running. Trying to fight that fight will be simple once we're stood up. All of the problems you see will just stop. Then we'll have authority, but we're not going to have the authority until we're recognized. So telling them what to do on that border, they're never going to listen to you.
Well,
But they
well,
will-
they may not, but honest statement to us was we still hold them accountable. If they don't listen,
Yeah.
that's on them.
Yeah, exactly. You hold them accountable. But going down and setting up meetings or showing up at that border or trying to protect at the border or anything like that, that could bring trouble to the assembly. And
No,
you
I
don't
don't mean
want
that. Yeah, I just mean in terms of how do we protect our people, Americans, on Texas relative to the border.
we have to get stood up. That's how we protect our people. I mean, there's so much a mess in this world today that goes bad. You know, I'll give you a little pointer. Protecting our people. We worry about all these little things, them crossing the border or whatever, but it's because they're showing you on the news. But you learn things out here in the forest too. One of my neighbors hit a gas line on his property. Okay, it's a main gas line that's bootlegged through the property. We started looking into it, and the gas lines, water lines, crude oil lines, and water lines are all owned by this one company, Morgan Feller or something like that owns all these pipelines. In 2018, they sold it to Canada, and I can only point this out to American nationals because when I tell other people, they don't even realize it. But in 2018, they sold all of our utilities, heavy-duty pipelines, all hazardous material pipelines. They sold it to Canada, which is now ran by the Crown. All of our utilities here are ran by the Crown. So now if you go and send the Crown a letter saying, hey, we told you this is wrong, it's not going to change anything. We're going to have a lot more to do, but we can't do anything until the assemblies are stood up. And then they can elect their sheriffs, and each county can give that sheriff a star and sign their commissions, and we can get our commission signed and hand it over to us. We can't do anything until then, but once we can, you bet believe that the marshals will be at that border. That would be our job. We would be there for sure. But at that time, we would be recognized. If you go at any other time or try to do anything, you're not recognized as a government in their eyes, and they're not going to have anything to do with you.
This is Dennis in Arizona. May I?
Yeah, go ahead, then.
We sent out our ex parte milligan a couple months ago, and we also sent notice to the governor here in Arizona and all the border sheriffs to close the border. So you're saying that that's a waste of time?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but I'm only one man, and that's my personal opinion. They're not going to listen to you. They're running their own things, and you're foreign to them. They now have more area than we do, so you're a foreign national to them. Sending them those notices, they don't do anything with it. Holding them accountable, having it on the record, that's fine. But other than that, it's not going to change that fact. And I just make sure that our assemblies are protected and that we're not sending a militia down there because they'll get a wrong idea of what our militia is compared to the militia that they've made people out to be.
Thank you.
And really, Arizonans and Texans should be trying to figure out how to stop any problem at their border as far as militia being set up and all that. But you're talking 5-6 years down the road. It's not going to help tomorrow.
Any other comments?
Hey Terry, this is Scott from Colorado.
Yeah, go for it, Scott.
Yeah, thanks. Hey Paul, a couple questions. You've been addressing one of them. Is there are a lot of members that are concerned about credibility, acknowledgement, enforcement on our side to affect any change with the de facto, and you're kind of answering that by stating that we need to stand up our assemblies first for them to ever accept us or acknowledge us as having any common law authority in any of this. Is that correct?
That's correct. Without it being recognized, they're not going to listen. Once it's recognized, then Milligan ex parte kicks in and they move aside. But if you only have a few states that are leading the way and getting to a point where Milligan ex parte can be invoked on their state, they still have a ton of other states that aren't there yet. And you'll need that to be recognized. When I first became a Continental Marshal, before even chief, no, actually when I became chief, Anna sent me the Law of Peace. And when I read that, you know, I learned a lot from Anna, but everybody learns different. And I had trouble comprehending all of it, putting it together. And then she sent me the Law of Peace right when I was getting started to reading the Law of War. And I told her, okay, do both of these, you know, are both of these in play? Well, the Law of Peace is when we're at peace, and the Law of War is when you're at war, and those make up the Law of Nations. I'm losing track just like Joe did. But when I read that Law of Peace, I was able to comprehend a lot better exactly what you need to do to stand up and be recognized as a government in the International Court of Justice. Be recognized. Then Milligan ex parte will kick in. But I didn't get it from Anna's writings, and then when she sent me that Law of Peace, that was what I needed to show me what it was. And I'm like, this is why she teaches it or wants us to stand up these pillars, because you have to be recognized by other states. I'm on Tennessee, Joe's on Kentucky. If I set up a whole assembly here and all the four pillars are set up, and Joe sets up an assembly there and all four pillars are set up, I recognize him as a government, he recognizes me, and so on and so on. Once the states are all standing or whatever, they're all recognized. And then Milligan ex parte kicks in, they're out of the way, and they have to listen because we all recognize each other from other states as a government.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So that kind of ties into your question. I think a lot of states think that the ex parte Milligan is just a panacea, and things are going to be made to happen just by giving notice of the ex parte Milligan. Our concern is what enforces that, and you're answering that question. So what makes the de facto accept us, recognize us, acknowledge us, to give us any standing whatsoever?
We would have to stand, be recognized, and only deal with the organ player. Stop dealing with the monkeys. Everywhere you go, whatever that is, you know, you're dealing with the organ player. A notice to the Secretary of State, that type of deal for your state. You're going more to the top than messing with all the little monkeys in the smaller 3-letter agency, whatever committee.
Yeah, so we're really working on standing up our pillars. We're about to get a look at the lander, look at our international business pillars, and all of them. We're close. We're very close. But our concern is, like you've expressed, you know, what's going to make them acknowledge us, recognize us, having any influence or standing at all. So I have another question for you. These donations for the Gonzales, are they from other Carla?
All right. So, ending on that note with sometimes it's kind of hard to hear that the reality is, and what we've been saying is, you have to stand up before you have any authority to be recognized for anything. And Paul made it very clear in that. And again, in the agenda presentation will be the link that is the full video for this, as well as it should be available on the YouTube lineup to hear the whole segment of this. All right, so any questions, comments?
Another excellent, Christine, it was great, the segments that you pulled out of that meeting very, really helps to emphasize the fact that among the many folks who have corrected their status to that of, being recognized as a sovereign, as an American, it's through that continuous effort moving to that of, committing to serving the people as a state citizen. That's really the defining difference. I mean, everything takes shape at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't be emphasized enough. But that's where we're at.
Right. And again, you can't course correct anyone else until you've corrected yourself. So you can't support correcting the state at state level or even county level till you've status corrected yourself. And you can't do anything to work outside there and internationally until the assembly is up.
And isn't it interesting also, Christine, when we look at the de facto is completely saturated with citizenry. They insist on everybody considering themselves as citizens. So they've bloated and distorted that service to the point of everybody's considered. So
yeah, and that's why they don't have any respect for the actual jury pool process. They don't have any respect for the citizen level.
The emphasis is on when the citizens step up to make that change and serve the people. But the writings on the wall is that the de facto has deemed everybody a state citizen. So they don't make that distinction at all.
Dragnet.
And at least you're right. So that's kind of proof in my mind that that's what's taking place is state citizenry is where things are changed. It's through that servitude, benevolent servitude of the people, but not everybody, of course. So in other words, you cannot, the American people are owed a lawful limited government, but they have to have that in order to actually make change. And the de facto says everybody is that of a citizenry, which that's not true either.
Right, because not everyone's serving.
Right.
All right. Anything else? Any other comments, or is there?
Well, I wanted to share.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, Justin. Go ahead.
I'll just make one on. He also in the first, I think it was the first clip you shared. He said we're all just practicing the positions at this moment in time anyway, until Anna passes down the commissions and she, we're actually standing. Then she's not going to pass them down no matter how many notices that we send or
and Paul outlined that process. The assembly has to stand up in order for the commissions for the sheriffs, and then that gives the commissions to continental marshals, right?
Yeah. Then he also, at the very beginning, pointed out how we don't have any power positions. All our positions have a need based solely on the fact of the need and not the person or the people that's fulfilling it. Mm-hmm. And if it don't get fulfilled, that's the beauty of our government is we get to get rid of them and get somebody that will do it. So
right, and we've got to be able to do that. We've got to,
yes, through elections and things of that nature. So that's why all the different roles are so important. But it also is important that it stems from the General Assembly. The people that have come before, declared their paperwork as American State Nationals, American State Citizens, And that's how we establish our jurisdiction and our standing and our provenance. So, and one thing I pointed out to somebody new I talked to was, I think the question, I can't remember the exact question, but, my response was, we're all self-governing. We all practice self-governing. But what makes up our government is a body of self-governing people. So, just because you declare your status, there's a step above and beyond that needs to happen too, and it's very needed. So,
Yeah.
I yield.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Christine,
yes, go ahead.
well, whatever's next on the agenda, if you have time, just wanted to touch base on the updates to the PKTF News website, and if we also have time, I did send 5 points in an email as a product of what the Kentucky Litigation Committee has been working on. So if you want to,
Okay, let me get into my email.
I'll give an example of both. Hopefully tie them in if we have about 10 minutes between the two.
Okay. And I can pull up the.
Well, if you can pull up the email first, just.
Okay, yeah,
right-
I can do
right
that.
before-
I just gotta get it where I can't show all the other stuff for that. Okay. Oh, I got a screen share in Zoom for you all to see it too. Oh, I have to forget. I gotta remember about that. Still, okay. Okay.
Okay, so Christine, if you want to, I can zoom in and read it here.
Oh.
But and the recording is capturing it also, so anybody can zoom in. But what this is a kind of a work in play as actual, factual, measurable grievances, if you will, or offenses that onto the American people. But if we're talking about citizenry and it being so pivotal that these corrections be made based on these defined offenses, it would stand to reason that the recognition that Chief Paul was mentioning would be that of each state citizen serving in their respective roles. And of course, by default, the recognition also goes to the American state nationals who are not serving. So it's just by default. When the recognition will come to, or should come to, through the citizenry. We've mentioned this many times, that these 5 points here, or 6 points, shows that of what a American state citizen would feel by and large, because they're attempting to move around and work throughout the days of the week, and if even their modes of travel are hampered, all of these fit in not only for recognition, mainly these 6 points, as you can read, are seeking lawful recognition that is conveyed to the de facto establishment properly, and then the opportunity to move about, and to be compensated. And these are 6 among probably 12 or so, maybe 15. But I just want to point out some things that everybody can appreciate. But this ties into the grand jury or the Jural Assembly aspect with regards to the attempt from the de jure citizenry reaching out to the de facto at the state level. First of all, identifying where the controversy is taking place and the offenses, where are they coming from. But as we know, no matter what or county structure, government structure you have, the offense is coming through the city, the municipality, going through each city government, separate from the county government, and the city government's recognition is coming through the state. Okay, so now we're right back to the familiarities between the state citizenry and the American State Assembly citizenry. Okay, and there is the American State Nationals sitting back rooting those who simply cannot no matter how hard they try, simply cannot dedicate themselves to serving any citizen capacity. And that's fine, but I mean, joining a committee, you know, in the back rooms, making things happen, bringing the ideas together, that's doing their part, and they wouldn't have to take on the role of that of the citizenry. And a lot of the American State Nationals finds out, you know, the quandary is a catch-22. Both have to happen. Participation on both levels have to take place, and the recognition for the American state citizens have to take place. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to add that. We could talk about this later
Okay.
on another call if you like, but I just wanted to provide that to your listeners and those who reviewed the meeting here.
And
about
I
what
can
about
add
what a
in,
litigation
Oh, go
committee
ahead.
can work on.
Oh yeah, that would be perfect. And I can add that into the the slides that are going to stay within, so that we have all the information together to share.
Yeah, and the daily rotation would be, or the effort would be, that the citizens, as they grow in their office and they step up and they take on the role and they learn the role and they attempt to be recognized. I mean, everybody can relate of having to register their automobile, but defining it, making that distinction, lawful distinction, being recognized that this automobile is not in any commercial capacity. It never has. It never will be.
Right.
And then reaching out to the state departments, you know, and then making that this firm distinction. If anything, starting with the county level regarding status correction, the emphasis on the need for status correction. And once it's recognized at the county level, I believe all of the other 5 parts that you see there would fall into place.
Right.
It would if it was to place it in any sequential order, I would say that would probably be it.
Okay.
Okay, so here, really quick, if you'll hover over the home button, top. Okay, what is added there is articles, so you can click that. And what we're hoping to add is definitely one each week. Hopefully one each day, or eventually we'll add one every day. But here's your article section for PKTF News, and this will be PKTF-driven articles. They will be thorough, you know, quite thorough. You can click on that first one if you want, just as an example. So the layout looks like that. This is an update regarding the campaign for State Assembly's website, linking the pktfnews.org website. So this is just a salutation for those who have contributed so far. And these articles will be added to as it updates themselves. They'll have updates. Okay, and this is in addition to, if anybody who's going to the blog or sub-article blog that you see at the very bottom, you don't have to go there, but you can point it out. Yeah, that B, no, not that one. Those will be lit up with content as well, but that B in the bottom, in the middle.
Oh, here.
Blog, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, you don't have to click it, but right there, there's articles that are there, and in the future, for those who are not yet subscribed to this Future Magazine website, can still get a gist of what the Peacekeeping Task Force are offering and working on. But those are as sub-articles, and then in the future, this site will have a full spread article, if even up to a complete full spread, which is typically 8 pages of content. So, but in the meantime, of course, there's 2 ways to provide articles for PKTF.
Okay.
Okay, and then if you go to the About section, I'm just showing the 2 updates. Under Services. Okay. And if anybody's familiar with this site, you'll see when you go down, you'll see 8 or 6, actually 6 here. Analysis, presentation planning, subscriber base. All these 6 are panels. If you hover over them, you'll see that they reveal that it's all Assembly Militia based. Okay. Not all of these panels has content through the Read More section, but the first has content, and now the second. So if you click the second one, presentation planning, what's going to happen is when once each state assembly militia has leadership, we will start providing committee meetings and going through extensive PowerPoint presentations, and this is a screenshot of one of them, about how, now this is a tethered chain of an assembly that is much more robust and much more benevolent in their existence at the community level. Certainly that far and beyond any combat militia or any kind of posturing of any kind of combat related skill sets within the assembly militia. If you zoom in, which I actually have well, let me screen share. This is what I wanted to do. This is meant to be not in high resolution because that link goes nowhere, or that picture goes nowhere, but if you give me a screen share, I'll show you. Oh, I can't do it. Maybe I can do it. Let me see. I don't think I can. No, Christine, sorry, Zoom won't give that to me. But that slide is an interactive slide. So that would be a PowerPoint presentation, very clear, interactive, and will be provided to Assembly Militia leadership. So their speaker or their committees, actually their committee. And I can tell you, you can go back to that screen if you want. I know it's a bit foggy. It's meant to be because it's not.
I did magnify it a little bit.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's just an example. There's the press corps. And if you do go to this side on that first flip it, you don't have to now, but on the first where it talks about analysis,
right,
that's a pretty interactive page because it goes into the Bill of Rights. Well, the Bill of Rights, most researchers should know that those are enumerated rights that lead into the social compact of the Constitution, along with and further into the reading of the Constitution are the enumerated powers. Well, isn't it interesting that the first part of their Constitution is their Bill of Rights, So the Peacekeeping Task Force has a really interesting, fun way to refine our assembly militia. And those first 10 Bill of Rights is something that we can really, really work with. Although second and third is not what we're really focusing on at this point, but if you go, the PowerPoint snippet that you see on the page there does attempt to refine and preoccupy our state assembly militia with the press corps, or that being the First Amendment, which is exercising freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and whatnot. And then it goes into an analysis. What's that like? What can that be like? What is the posse comitatus? What's that about? How does that fit into facilitate sheriffs? The approach towards engineering, and there's typically 3, I'd say 4, but because I am an engineer by trade, but it goes into the aspects of how a community can build on the engineering aspect of their community. But electrical engineering, civil, mechanical, chemical, and logistical engineering are typical categories of engineering as a whole. Then bookbinding, what is that like? I mean, the assemblies need libraries, and with the continual collection of libraries material that are in digital format, obviously a lot of those do-it-yourself skills, crafts, research as a whole deserves a place on the shelf, so that would take a bookbinding approach. And again, these are all what a militia can do, collectively. Revisionists, that'll provide higher education in a palatable manner, in an approachable manner, not a combative type manner, not throwing stones at their social media or corporate media presence, but just, a way to approach higher education. Business contracting, what can that be? How can an assembly perfect that realm of underwriting, and offer that to the people free of charge? Another layer of education, basically. And then, of course, public relations, which really ties it all together. But these are just a few. These 9 facets of what an assembly militia can provide certainly sheds light on what the modern day stigma is regarding militia, that being ammo toting, target practicing, camouflage wearing.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate that. Thank you. A little taste on what's coming up. And those will be with committees.
Oh,
you know?
I didn't share in the thing. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't screen share. I'll do a quick pulling it up, but that way this is what he explained. So it'll be in the... It should be on the YouTube recording, but...
Right, sure. Yeah, and again, you can imagine, especially, you know, animation graphics adds to the reality of what's being conveyed. And
Right.
so these are just functions within any county can provide these and certainly many, many more aspects of their community, their community values.
Right.
So it just fits really nicely, and with each scheduled committee assembly within each state or multiple states, they'll actually meet with the Peacekeeping Task Force, and a full-blown presentation will be provided to those committee chairs.
Ah. Fun times. Exciting.
Yep, and each one, and zone of services, which seems to be the next largest build out for this site. Those 4 remaining flipped panels will be there'll be more content added to them as well. So higher education, as you see, subscriber based. What does that mean? What is, you know, interview broadcasting? What does that entail? And these are pillars in and of themselves, and you can see when you go in, like we just was under presentation strategy, what that might look like, our planning, what does that look like?
Oh. Do you want me to go back into that one?
No. That's,
okay.
No, that was just explaining. Again, these are 6 panels or pillars within the assembly, but there could certainly be more, and there will be.
Right.
We wanted to choose. We just deduced it down to 6 kind of pillar developments, and then what can be under them.
Right.
And so, you know, the next will be the subscriber-based approach towards assembly militia build out. If you'll notice, you have not yet seen anything with regards to combat at all. And yes, that is definitely a part of your county and state level militia, but it doesn't need to be that as of yet.
Right.
That's just something that every man or woman among their household will provide that, you know, uniquely themselves initially.
Right.
And that's a great start, of course. I mean, any family who does not have a means to protect their home and a plan how to evacuate, you know, along those same lines, I mean, that's a real big, steep uphill battle for trying to convince anybody to branch out beyond that as far as combat militia or any aspect of that.
Right.
So that's why we don't focus on it yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all. Thank you.
Awesome. Loving it. All right. That was all that I had. Was there anything you wanted to bring out, Justin, before we end the call this evening?
Yeah, I just want to plug participation in the assemblies, and when you're talking to other people about the assemblies and what we're here to do, Paul brought up another on the Marshall Orange Bridge call. He was on this last one last Friday, and he brought up a good point as to the reconstruction point. You know, we were taught in schools that the reconstruction was building new schools, new government buildings, courthouses, all that kind of stuff. Well, that's the indoctrination. The real truth behind the story is that we're here to reconstruct our government, the actual working parts of the government, the part that Anna talks about all the time. That's the old machinery out in the garage that needs some American maintenance done on it and some Americans to run it. It's built for us, but we've got to restore it and reconstruct it. And so I just wanted to make a point, you know, with all the discussion about jurisdiction that seems to be coming out on the calls within the structure, you know, the elected officials within the assemblies, and also Anna's talking about it on her webinars. So it's kind of like a cog in the wheel thing that's going on with the universe right now. And I think it's very timely. And when you're talking, let's stop focusing. I don't want to take anything away from the noticing aspect of things, but that seems to be the maybe a waste of time. Don't hate me for saying that.
And
I know a lot.
you're referring to notices as far as sending letters out to all the sheriffs and
Yeah.
any issues to the de facto kind of thing. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure it doesn't get misunderstood about the notices for their own status correction.
No, I'm talking about the assembly.
Other than if they're denouncing another country's citizenship that Paul talked about
Right.
in that. Yeah.
No, I was actually talking about, the notices that the assemblies are sending out to get, to try and make people bow to our whims or whatever. It's the only thing they're going to listen to is us standing and being official.
Being recognized. Right.
Right.
Yeah, you
The
have
only
to
way-
stand.
Yeah. The only way to do that is to gain in populace. And that's what we're trying to do. That's the main goal on the assemblies. So when you're talking to other people, people in your sphere of influence and all that, make sure that you're talking about and clearing up the dualities in what people perceive and what the actual fact of the matter is. There's ways of doing that. Everybody's different at doing it, and everybody's better at it different ways. But I don't want people to see this recording and come down on me for saying that maybe the noticing is a waste of time. It's not a waste of time. It's perfect for a committee to work on within the assembly, that type thing.
Absolutely.
But, the assembly as a function is building the pillars, focusing on construction, restoring and reconstruction, and that takes the American state citizens. So get to know your paperwork, talk, and so you can talk to other people about your paperwork, and just step up. And none of us have ever been justices. None of us have been clerk of courts. None of us has been.
It's all, yeah.
But all we know is see jurisdiction. We can do that on the land and soil because we're self-governing, and a self-governing aspect is discernment, humbling ourselves to information, leading with our heart instead of, clogging with our mind. If you want something bad enough, humble yourself to research it, and that's
And
what it's
release and if you're being course corrected, release being felt like you're in trouble, that somebody's always, trying to make you do something that to correct it. You're wrong with everything. Release all those energies so that you can move forward. That's the whole point of course correcting. It's not about hurting feelings because we've all fallen short of the glory of God. We have all sinned. We've all been a part of this. This was started before most of us were breathing, I would think, so far.
Oh, yeah. I love that term, course correction, too. I mean, that's maybe most of the assemblies need to maybe course correct a little bit and focus. I know it's hard to sit back and talk, too, because I think every assembly at this point is waiting for the big mass exodus, so to speak. So that's all we can do is prep for that, and plan for the worst and hope for the best, I guess. Yeah, right.
Right.
So, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thanks for the Kentuckians that came on.
Yes,
appreciate it.
Thank you. And another point that was brought up, and this will help many Indianians that have been on calls and heard past recordings of why we like to have our camera on, why we want to have our name in the description there, not just guest, because those are lurkers.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that just want to sit around in the background, see what everybody's doing, complaining about what they don't like, but then not at least try to offer some constructive way to be able to work through it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm always, and especially having that first for us, our generation, face-to-face meeting, I think if you get more into that type of atmosphere, when our forefathers did it, they didn't have Zoom. So I think we're kind of at a disadvantage of that, because it does allow people to sit back and just do that and learn. Face-to-face, you're there, you're involved, and you feel a part of something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to getting more of those started on Kentucky as well. So
Absolutely.
those face-to-face, getting people involved.
Yes.
Their energy,
And really, right
So-
now, those are going to be more like a gathering, get together.
Yeah.
It's not going to be so much of any kind of conducting business, because
Right.
that's being done through the committees anyway. Unless there's just a like a general town hall type of atmosphere for that, but you're
Or if
not
a
really going
committee- or your counties get established, your counties could start doing that. That's where the pedal is to metal on your counties. You
Absolutely.
can on your counties. And that's where your talesmen would come involved too. They would hear of your assemblies on your counties. They would kind of kick the tires, so to speak, on the new thing and kind of sit back and not want to get involved. But when the opportunity comes to hold somebody accountable, everybody's always about that. They say unite, unite, unite. We need to be united. We need to quit hating. I think we're united. We need accountability. And so that's what our courts are here for. That's what the general jurisdiction is. It gives us jurisdiction on everything. Our courts are courts of general jurisdiction.
and fully, as Paul said, you have to stand up to be recognized.
That's it.
You can't
That's it.
you can't halfway do it. They're not gonna look at you. It's just like, the one that has their gun that's in a secured holster on their hip. They're assembled. They're put together. We're the one that they're loose and their guns just hanging all around. I want them. They need help.
Yeah.
This is the same thing. When you're put together and you stand up, they're gonna pay. Then you'll be recognized. And
Christine, if I could
go ahead.
If I could make a recommendation for our next meeting, if we could share the screen of each role, elected office that's needed,
Okay.
and then we can discuss what we are familiar with regarding those offices and those job descriptions. I mean, for instance, my mom is a registered nurse, retired. She lives in Florida, but she's a born Kentuckian. She's up here visiting me right now. She's on her 3rd week. And then she'll go back to Florida. But I've been mentioning it to her to be that of, if she would be interested in coming out of retirement and being that of a coroner.
Oh, wow.
And she is interested in that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and of course, she was in the medical field. She's owned her own business. She worked in prenatal care. So she went to medical school. But that's not what is needed. That's what's beautiful about those stringent pre-qualifications is not what's needed. Just that autodidactic, self-educating mindset, people learning that role if they're interested in it. And of course, there will be future compensation for those state-elected citizenry roles. So anyway, I thought it would be a great opportunity if we could,
Yes.
try to
I'll pull that
more
out
freq-
and get that put
more
together.
frequently show those so that the people who are considering, those American state nationals who are maybe considering, if they see it more often, it might spur their own self.
Which that reminds me again, there's no call this Monday because it's 5th Monday of the month. So we'll be back
Sure.
on the 6th, okay? So that gives me a little extra time to dig in my notes to get this pulled together and get the slides up. So,
Yeah,
Could
if it were,
go ahead.
Go ahead,
I was-
John.
I was just gonna say, if it were me and I was on the fence, sitting back as a Kentucky not decided, I would definitely want to see those roles. How many are there in total, and what are they? And then I would do my research. And like for instance, my mom, the coroner role, she's like, well, that's great. She's 67 and she's not in the best of health, but of course now she's on Social Security. She just started receiving Social Security, and that's no real way to go out and to retire. Especially with somebody who's served in that industry. But I looked up what a coroner for Kentucky would be. It's pretty handsome compensation package as it is now. But I mean, just one of those angles. People would be interested in that. This doesn't have to be that they're driven by compensation, but that's the world we live in, of course. And a lot of people, I would imagine, are not able to tear away from their job. This is something as a going notion.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, and I would have to say that yes, by and large, that is the case. Whatever they're working at now, preoccupies their time to such a degree each day of each week that they simply feel that they cannot pursue anything else. So it's a bit of a comfort zone challenge that.
Right. And when we're at that point of where salaries can even be started to think about, that's where then, Indianians and Kentuckians will start seeing, well, do we have the funds? Are we, what is a good starting base, as the budgets, and they can start seeing how that fills in.
Absolutely, yep. Well, thank you for that. I look forward to that during our next meeting.
Okay, yes. I will do that, and I'm going to include the 6 offenses that you emailed and as part of our regular slides within there.
And that would be something, that scenario, that would be something that the state citizens themselves would feel the immediate offense. If that's a hindrance that's standing in their way, and of course they've attempted to remedy, which of course it's going to be returned to them as no, because of their lack of being recognized. But then the contingency with that would be to bring that to your state grand jury so that they can say, indeed, this is truly an offense to our sovereign men and women who are serving other sovereigns, and so this is definitely a crime. And then they would send that to their trial jury, and then jury nullify. In this case, it's not a man bringing in another man for a direct offense. It's the de facto establishment saturating our landscape with their statutes. Yeah. And so again, this is then the trial jury's opportunity to say, with regard to the American state citizen, does your government, this is an offense, and that your statutes are hereby nullified in where their capacity to serve the people is being hindered. So it's really simple. Yeah. Really exciting too.
Yeah, and this is definitely information to share, so that, because we all have to be able to stand to speak for ourselves as well, so they would be able to incorporate that into their defense, so to speak. Go ahead.
Can I say something to Pinwell on what Joe just said? I mean, we're talking like we're going to have to educate them on what we're doing. They know. They know. They've known since 2014, 15. So they're just waiting on us to do it. It's like Donna says all the time. Somebody has looked at it and said, well, it's your all's to do. I mean, you're not doing it, so we're doing it. That's their defense, or that's what they're using. So our biggest hurdle is educating ourselves to what we've got to do, And once we can do that and fill the roles, then it should be a simple change of guard or change of command or whatever.
Exactly right.
And people need to also look at these other countries. They're standing up, and they're waiting for America to stand up. They're talking about the actual people, their countries standing up beyond the government that's in play, because they're all agreeing their governments are corrupt. And they're waiting for America because they need us in that. It has to be all of us in this.
Yeah.
We're the ones behind.
Disobedience, like Mahatma Gandhi did. It's civil, but it's disobedience, making us known. That way, people have the free will choice to make the self-governing decision on whether they want to stay in Egypt or do they want to do the second Exodus. That's what I attested to. I think the Creator God wants a free America, wants a de jure America. I believe it in my heart, but hey, we've got to do it ourselves. So, not saying that I'm all high and mighty. I've got a lot of course correction, a lot of learning to do myself. But at some point, to be able to play a role, then the game has to get going. I can't. And as a coordinator, the same thing, and as a clerk, the same thing. It's all cog and wheel concept. It's a harmonizing system. So I just want to put a plug in for the Kentucky Assembly. I put out a meeting. We're going to have an October General Assembly meeting tomorrow night. Sorry for the short notice, but I sent a link out to everybody that's papered up, as well as people that we have in process too. So we'll be sure and read the business decision at the beginning, letting people know. And then I've got a short 30 slide PowerPoint for like a new people presentation orientation that will all go through, get on the same page, people that are papered up, not papered up. And then we're going to talk about some things we could have done. We're going to talk about the in-person meeting, and then also talk about the coordinator role and some of the needed positions on Kentucky. So again, I'll shut up. It's 8 minutes past. I appreciate it. Joe, it's good talking with you. Christine, thank you again for all the hard work and the outstanding standard, setting the standard for the information and stuff like that. So
We can do it. We can all do it. We can do it.
I appreciate you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. And we appreciate you and all that you do for Kentucky and Kentuckians. Absolutely. All right. Anything else, Joe, before we close out?
No, that's it. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so we'll go ahead and close out for this evening. Again, no call for next Monday, October 30th. So we're adjourning because the General Assembly and Militia Assembly is for the 6th of November. And then the 13th is the next Jural Assembly and Militia Assembly combined. And I can do both in for both as well, because I'm going to update the General Assembly. That'll have a lot of that information like I've put in this one, but it'll also be General Assembly related and office roles and everything like we talked about. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Peace and love. Have a great 2 weeks. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Peace, y'all.
Recording stopped.